Most people think that the outcome of innovation is a eureka, but really the outcome of innovation usually is, that was kind of weird.
Hey there, friend. It's Stephanie Crevens, your host of the Hot Mess Hotline, where we teach mid-level leaders to think like entrepreneurs. And today we're continuing the conversation with Mike Loggins, the Global Vice President for IT at SMC. He is going to walk us step by step for how he solved his hot mess, how he solved the fact that his people weren't collaborating, they weren't working within the agile framework fast enough. They weren't collaborating enough. They were continuing to value solo work when he was calling them into something bigger and better than themselves. And he's also going to describe for you the urgency for change and why it was so important to the business that his team tackle this new challenge. Also, I want you to listen in for how he equipped an office of nearly 40 people for a small amount of money. So I want you to get some ideas from this conversation about how you can try big things on a shoestring budget to see what sticks, what works, what's going to make you successful. All right, let's get into the conversation with Mike. All right, Mike, so let's dig in. What was the pivot point for you as the leader of the IT teams to find another solution?
Like I said, I think I started getting pressure from my peers and other departments to figure something out. I mean, the amount of dissatisfaction we were getting back and feedback was starting to get a little out of hand and getting to the point where we couldn't just talk our way out of it. We had to do something, and which is fine, because one of the things we're trying to do from our transformation is identify something that doesn't work, try something. Unfortunately, with as big of a building we spent probably 3-4 months scouring the building for space. As big of a building it is, and as big as an office we have so many people and so many setups and so many conference rooms and other labs. There isn't a lot of open, unused space to be used for an office. We looked at, hey, can we swap spaces with these groups over here? But almost every time we did that, we were going to end up separating them and splitting them up. And we decided that's not fair. I mean, we're trying to address our problem. We can't create them the same problem we're trying to address by us addressing it. So we just kept trying to find new things. And then we were taking a walk around the building to try to find places, and we went through a door that is actually a mezzanine to our facility. Okay. So it's not in the office, but it's not necessarily in our warehouse. It's kind of in between. It had the ability at some point, if we really wanted to invest the capital, to turn it into part of the office. Of course, our goal is not to spend a ton of money to try to address this problem at this point. We just wanted to try something. We wanted to experiment with something. So we found this space, and right now at that point, it was the attic for the company. It had crap from every department in it. It had stuff from the apartments of our expats who had moved back to Japan. It had stuff from some of the community groups that we support and help with. It had old IT equipment in it. It had old warehouse and logistics equipment in it. It was just old cafeteria equipment. It was just crap everywhere. Yeah. So we spent some time really trying to think, is that the right place? Because it's an experiment, and it's a very different environment than sitting in an office. Because if you look outside, you're either looking at a huge the inside of an exterior wall to the building, or out into the warehouse. So you're not seeing the pretty walls. You don't have the same type of lighting, and obviously there's no intermediate walls and things. So there is no, sound is sound, and it bounces everywhere.
There's some forklift beeping going on out there.
Forklifts coming through, all the safety. The conveyor runs real close to one whole wall of the side of that new space. But as we kept drilling down, that was the only option we had. Our option was to not do anything, which was going to kill our transformation. Just flat out kill it, or try something. And we decided that was the place to try. And we took the approach of let's spend as little money as possible and get out there as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So we can
scrappy and incremental.
Absolutely. So we can start figuring out what works and what doesn't work, which started, which that was the plan to address the hot mess. I have to say that in that process, we probably created 10 hot messes in the path for, the company had to figure out where to move their attic to. And we had, we did have to run some small things to make sure we could actually function and fit out there. But we went to Facebook Marketplace to find tables, desks, cabinets, lockers, so we outfitted almost the entire IT furniture for under $2,000-$3,000 for 40 people.
40 people.
So we did it really scrappy. It's not permanent. We purposely didn't put any kind of barriers up. We let the teams go out and figure out where they wanted to sit, and inside the teams, they can figure out where they want to sit within the teams. Our only request was that they don't sit back to back. So they're all in U shapes, or they're all in, in areas where they can look across their computer and see somebody. Or they're sitting right next to somebody, so it's very easy for them to work with each other. And as we moved out there, we've started to see it. Immediately started to see groups, especially like our support team, started immediately talking to each other. It was not just, everything just wasn't coming in and dying if they couldn't immediately fix it. They were getting up and talking. They were getting up and talking to our infrastructure team, and they're getting up and talking to some of it's our user technology groups. Our support team is the largest team we have, and has two pseudo small groups in it with different functions. Well, they were still in the middle of everything talking to each other. So, so we started to see the change. We started to see at least the conversation change from, well, I can't meet and talk to you, or they're never there, to I can. The hot mess we created at that point was, now I put 40 people who are used to working in a quiet environment out in the middle of warehouse noise. So that has, but what we did, and we were very deliberate about this, is we met with everyone well beforehand and said, what are your concerns? So we can look at what concerns can we address before we move out there. And then we can start looking at the concerns that we can't address beforehand, and then prioritize those based off the impact of the team and started figuring out how to address those. And so it led us to, before we went out there, we bought noise canceling headphones so people on the phone could actually listen on the phone and talk, and people wouldn't constantly be wondering, could not being able to hear them, so we could still service our customers. We bought some additional whiteboards to be able to build off, if we needed quick huddle space, you can kind of wall off a little spot with whiteboards and work, and you can wheel your whiteboards around to different groups so you can have more collaborative conversations. So we were able to do that before we even moved out there. So some of the initial concerns we were already addressing. We were able to upgrade the lighting so it wasn't as dark and dingy, throughout the day. So it was a lot more light and bright. So we were able to start going down those paths. And then we started identifying the things that we aren't going to be able to fix. I cannot fix the fact that it is very important for safety that fork truck drivers, when they are driving, honk their horn. That's not a deterrent that's not something IT can ever fix. That's a safety issue for everyone on the floor of the warehouse. And
yes.
So trying to identify those things are like, they're going to be there. Get used to them. Let's figure out how to work around them. Let's figure out how to work around it. We had a
control the controllables, y'all. Not
Absolutely.
Everything is inside of our control.
And not everything is outside our control. That became a theme of, well, every once a month on Friday they turn on the diesel generators for the fire suppression pumps, and which is right under this mezzanine. So it's really loud, it shakes, and it was just like, what are we gonna do on Fridays? We're just gonna work 410s and not work Fridays. We're gonna all leave on Friday. I was like, no, I'm gonna ask them to do it on Saturday. And lo and behold, once you ask them, hey, could you guys go do this like on a Saturday, or do it later in the afternoon, or do it at lunchtime, and then we'll just make sure we accommodate it. It was, yeah, sure, we can do it on Saturday, no problem. And then
Awesome.
Problem solved. So
Yes.
what it really did is it allowed us and forced us to have actual conversations, not about technology,
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of different groups in the company, because we needed their help. We need them to help us to help ourselves. So
Yes.
we needed facilities to help us do things. We needed the warehouse to help us do things, and we needed, so it became it opened up a whole nother realm of communications inside that company,
Yeah.
into with IT as well. We're still working on the sound issue. We'll always be working on that sound issue, and, probably to a certain degree, because even though with some of our growth, the sounds that we have right now will go away over the next couple of months as we expand and move into our new facility. We will put
As
things
as
back
the manufacturing side of your company moves to another facility,
as
just for clarity's
the
sake.
warehouse
Yes.
side moves over to a new facility
Yes.
we have. The manufacturing side will move into this space over time. So
Mm.
the noise will come back. It'll be a different noise. It still won't be crazy, but it'll be, once again, what can we do to make it work? So it's now it's forcing us to have the conversations and ensuring in what we do as an IT department that we actually, and especially with leadership, buy into this process of build something that's viable and provides value immediately, and then continually to figure out how, with experimentation and with improvements, to make it better.
Yes. Can I
So
stop you for just a second? Because
please,
the process that you all followed intuitively is actually best practice for executing on an idea. And so for those listening in, there's a book called The Work of Leaders, fantastic. And it articulates this process that Mike and his management team followed. And the premise of this is that the work of leaders is to create the vision, which Mike has, right? Like, how do we collaboratively serve real business problems within IT? Then most leaders jump to execution, right? We have this grand plan, let's just make it happen. But what you heard in Mike's process was he spent more time on alignment. How do we get people on board and emotionally engaged in this? As we ask them, what problems do you see coming up? One-on-one, not in group, right? Most of us want to go to the staff meeting and announce something and be like, and then we take the silence from the team as agreement. It's a terrible process that creates lots of problems on the back end. But when you spend the time to sit down one-on-one with people and ask them, what are their concerns? What do you see as the problems? And what do you see as the solutions? And then prioritize that, that's where you get buy-in into the execution. So this process here is absolute genius. What you heard Mike follow, go and do it more often. And if you want to read about it, the book is called The Work of Leaders.
This season of the Hot Mess Hotline is brought to you by my Hot Mess Quiz. One of the common lessons that my clients learn during coaching is how to really evaluate a problem, dissect it for clarity, and then take action on the tasks that really move the needle. The Hot Mess Quiz can bring you that focus too. As a leader, your work life is full of, well, work. But according to Pareto, 80% of that work isn't even impactful. If you need to create growth and change, you need to focus in on what truly matters and what will drive new results. Take the Hot Mess Quiz by clicking on the link below, which is stephaniecrevens.com/Hot Mess Quiz. Just like this podcast promise, and this is in the real world too, what happens when people stop being polite and start getting real? That's what you're going to get in this report. It's going to be tailored to your business hot mess to tell you exactly where to focus your efforts first, and then how to bring your team along to get the change that you need to create. Go to stephaniecrevens.com/Hot Mess Quiz. Don't wait another minute to start becoming the pro troublemaker you've always wanted to be.
So what did you learn about yourself as a leader during this transition, during this problem-solving mode? Yeah, and just during this whole experience of getting your folks out there.
I think it was I can never communicate enough. Even when I'm thinking I'm communicating, I'm not communicating enough, because
Amen, bro. Amen.
We fell into the trap you were talking about. Sometimes we took silence as agreement, because we're trying to do a ton of things, and if no one's saying, talking about things, asking questions, sharing their concerns, we just, okay, we're good. And so And we did have an issue when we moved out that we hadn't addressed the concern that somebody had brought up because they hadn't mentioned it for a while. They mentioned it once. And then as we continued to work on it, it never came back up. So we just moved it off the list. And it didn't become important. So then we did have to do some things where we had to real quickly try some different things to try to take care of it, because there was an absolute issue that we forgot. Like, how are we going to do meetings out on the floor with 40 people when you can't hear past 10 feet? And you know, having a one-on-one conversation is easy. Having a small group conversation is okay. Having a 40-person, huddle with the entire team is very complicated and hard. And how do we continue to do that when we do have people who are remote in other facilities across North America?
Yes.
So we did not thought through that. So we've been, so it forced us to have to take some reactionary steps to quickly work around different things. But at the same point, at that point, we had already started to establish that they were in more control of those changes than I think they thought they were. So we saw the team starting to figure out their workarounds. And then, we would work with them to understand that their perceived boundaries were off. They had way much more autonomy and way more flexibility to make decisions on certain things than I think they thought they did. So once again, we hadn't told them, hey, your boundaries are way big. So they just still assumed it was this big. So we had, once again, so we communicated, and, it was like, try something. You don't need me to say it's okay to try something. Just try it.
Yes.
Go. And we had some success. We've seen some great innovation within the team about how they communicate. We've seen some very clever things they've put in place to make sure they can continue to communicate and talk. And we've seen some people refer back to just common sense. Hey, if I need to have a conversation with 10 people, I'm not going to sit in a circle out there in the middle of the place and yell, trying to get it. We're going to go move to a conference room. And that was huge to them, because they thought once we moved out, they weren't allowed back into the conference rooms.
Oh my.
And it was like, well, that's not, once again, it was us not communicating that we weren't changing the rules. We were just giving them an opportunity to do something different. But if they needed the conference room, still go use a conference room.
Yes.
So it was very interesting to see. And we still have things that we're working through, and we still have problems that pop up. But what we're finding is that we're seeing the benefits starting to outweigh the issues. Maybe not always at an individual level, but we're seeing it at a group level. We're seeing it in the collaboration level. You can't hide when everyone's sitting in the same room. You can find out when someone's, if you need to talk to somebody, you can look outside your computer and stare at them, get up and walk towards them and have a conversation.
Yes.
Rather than, hit them up on Slack, ask if they're around, and they say, yeah, but then by the time you get down the floor and across the building to them, they're gone for a while. You can see that. It's easy to say hi to everybody. So the idea of management by walking around is way easy now, because I can walk through that area, have conversations with people, check in on people, check in on my team. My leadership sits out there. All the IT leadership sits out there to support those teams. And so it just makes it a lot easier to build that collaboration, not just in the teams, but amongst the teams.
And what business results are you seeing because of this physical move and new collaboration?
It's still slow. We're still, we've taken an impediment out of the process. We haven't fixed, it hasn't fixed the whole transformation, but we've taken this impediment out, or we're dealing with this impediment. But we are seeing the fact that where we started to see some collaboration between groups that had to be very intentional, it's becoming much more fluid. So it's not requiring, hey, let's schedule something for next week to have this conversation so we can all be in the same room. It's literally, hey, can you come over here? And they get over and move. So we are, among some other changes that we're continually trying to make, we are starting to see conversations change from output to value, results, and outcomes. Which, and like I said, the idea of collaborating inside and outside your team is becoming less of the impediment to having those conversations. It was always the easy excuse. It was always, and not that it wasn't a problem. It was a problem, but it was always the easy way to say why we aren't getting things done, why we aren't succeeding. Now it's not. as much of an issue, and we're continually addressing it. So it's really going back to now we can continue on working to make sure that we're having those conversations. We've also welcomed the business out there anytime. So the doors work. We've had popcorn parties out there. We were able to snag an old popcorn machine that was in one of our cafeterias years ago, cleaned it up, and we've had some Mario Kart races out there on one of our big screen TVs, and we've just opened it up to make sure that even the business knows they can come out and collaborate with us. They don't have to. There's no barrier for them to get to IT. When it comes to needing to collaborate, if they need something, we've given them a path to get there. If we need something, we know how to find them. They know how to find us. And we've started to break down some of those barriers. So we're having conversations about why with the business, not just what we're trying to do. Why are we trying to do this? Why is it important to you that we're trying to do this? And what do we want to bring to the table because of this? Which we had, but it was always I think, came off very superficial when they turn around and see the very fragmented and siloed IT behind the scenes. I think they see that we're growing and changing, so they're still at a point now where they're believing and they're supporting, which is huge.
Yes. So as you think about going through this transformation as well as the physical move into better collaboration and your leadership through this journey, what did you learn about the people that you lead?
I think I definitely learned better ways of communicating with them on an individual basis. Okay. Once again, learning that the way I think and the way I say things doesn't always come off and mean the same thing to everybody. So saying it different ways, saying it, talking about it one-on-one with people. So it was not me making a statement and everyone else doing my bidding to get what I wanted done. It was me sharing a vision, getting everyone to understand and support the vision, and then let them go figure out how to deliver themselves and their teams to the vision to add that value rather than just making Mike happy. There was a lot of where I felt like it was, here's an idea, and everyone's like, okay. And then it was trying to figure out how to, they wanted to do it. I don't think I'm doing anything that is so radical that people be like, no way are we going to try that. But it's changed. There's a lot of things. We've also learned a lot about accountability. We've had to push a lot of accountability that has belonged with our contributors and has belonged with my mid-level management down. I was holding a lot of accountability for my managers. My managers were holding a lot of accountability for their staff. And during this process, what we've learned is we're holding on to this accountability that's not ours.
Yes.
So we've been able to push it down. We're making sure they understand what they're accountable for, and we're starting to hold them accountable, which of course brings on a whole nother hot mess topic and a whole nother set of issues and drama that we're working through and challenging ourselves to different ways to fix. But we know down the road it's going to lead to a much better group of people who, if they've wanted autonomy, so we're trying to give them autonomy in a way that delivers value to the company. We want to share direction so they understand and have the ability to really map their value to the overall goals of the company. Mm-hmm. We're really trying to make sure that they're as empowered and enabled to do what they need to do as possible. But what we realized is as we were doing that, we were not giving them accountability that came with that enablement and that empowerment. So that's something we learned during this process through some of the drama conversations, through some of the, some of the one-on-ones we've had, or places where people have just been upset about something that, it was just, they weren't taking any accountability for their environment.
Yes.
It was, the change was being done to them. They weren't seeing why it was being done. So we've worked really hard to try to start changing that. And that's been a big change, not only for me, to not hold on to the accountability for my team, mm-hmm. But it's been a big change for my team, not holding on to the accountability for their staff.
Yes, because there's lots of tension and emotions that emerge as we spread accountability rightfully throughout all levels of the organization. I see that a lot too with my leaders that I work with. Is it's easier to take on the work yourself. It's easier to fix errors versus going back and training so the next time it happens right. It's easier in the moment, but you're really shortchanging yourself in the long run. And mm-hmm. as a leader, you just keep holding on to more and more and more responsibility till
you reach your breaking point. And then when you try to push it back, you get that emotional backlash that you have to persevere through to get the right work to the right people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is not the easy stuff of leadership. This is the stuff. So what do you wish, because let me say it this way. You're one of the top dogs at SMC in North America. You're one of the big cheeses. What do you wish that mid-level leaders knew about what it's like to be in your shoes especially through these change efforts?
I think it's okay. I think the thing I'd like them to know is it's okay not to know the answer. You do not have to have all the answers when you're talking to your employees. You don't have to have all the answers when you're talking to your boss, but you have to be honest that you don't know the answers. If you come off like you know the answers but don't know the answers, you are just causing a problem for yourself and for your team and for everyone that's going to be associated with what you're doing. If you declare what you don't know, then you can also have a plan on how to deal with it. You may not know what it is, but you can know how you're going to deal with it. And it's okay. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to know how to leverage all of that information, all those talents, all the things going around to provide that leadership. There are many times where I'll state something, and then my team itself will turn that around, and we'll go a completely different direction, which matches my vision, which matches the direction I want, but how it's going to be done is much more in line with the way that they want their teams to work and how they want their teams to lead. So it's fantastic. Everything is not just top down. And if you go just straight top down, the ability to do any kind of a transformation where you're really delivering an upstream value gets harder and harder, because when you go when it's solely top down, you're only working on output. Your value is the task you got done today, and because that's what you were told to do. When it really becomes a collaborative conversation from the person, the individual contributor doing the work, all the way up to senior management, and there's push and pull on all sides, that's when you can we start shifting to the results. That's when we start shifting to value.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. Middle management does not need to know everything. Senior management doesn't need to know everything.
Yes.
We just have to know, you just have to know how to handle the things that are going to happen that you don't know are going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, that is one of the biggest secrets to life, I think, is that no one has it all figured out, but some of us have just learned how to make faster, better decisions than others. And so then people think we have it all figured out. We're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just moving forward.
We're going to try something else.
Yes. Yeah. 3 of the most freeing words in our vocabulary is, I don't know. I don't know, but let's figure it out. I'm excited to share this. I had goosebumps a couple of times. So many.
Oh, really?
Sense. Oh, yeah. It's good. So good. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Lots of universal lessons in what seems to you like, well, this is a problem, but people, it's not, it may not be the physical space issue, but it's going to be the collaboration. You trying to create transformational change and going about it, like, think about you and your team's original thought process of, if we just change our process, if we just change this, if we just change these tactical elements, then we'll have cultural business change. And you realized by engaging in that, what the next level was. There's always a next level.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, especially in IT departments, that's what we've seen is this whole idea of McAgile. has kind of just come through IT. Buy this tool, you're agile.
Yes.
Start having meetings every 2 weeks, and do it this way, and all of a sudden you're agile.
Yes.
And we started to follow down that path. And I have to say that the reason why we didn't go down that path is because I have one person on my team who is extremely high C, who is in leadership at that point, who just couldn't put his hands around it. He could not figure out how it worked. And so he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And finally we all went, crap, he's right.
Damn it.
And so at that point, we did a different assessment with the team, with the company we were working on, because they would constantly be pushing. You don't want to go down this path. I mean, if you tell us this is how you're going to go, this is your destiny. We'll help you. but we think you need to go this way. And we were like, yeah, but that's expensive. They're like, yes, but this way gets expensive because you don't get what you want.
Nice.
You get what you think you want, but it doesn't work, and then it falls apart.
Yeah.
So if you go this way, it doesn't. But we kept going, nah, and then finally he brought up some points. We're like, all right, let's evaluate that again. And as soon as we evaluated that, that's when we went, oh crap, yeah, we got to go that way.
Yes.
So we've spent a lot of money. We've spent a ton of time on this transformation. But when we go to places, we've sent people to some of the big Agile conferences, worldwide Scrum conferences and gatherings. We talk to people who've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, 6 years, and they haven't made the pivots we've made. And at that point, we were doing it for 9 months. And it's because we weren't going to try to build the tree from the leaves down. We were trying to build the tree from the roots.
Yep.
And some places, times it makes it really sloppy, and sometimes it makes it really uncomfortable. But we know that that's how it lasts. If and I think, like, unfortunately, from an IT standpoint, and I don't know how it is. I realize I get a lot of very direct marketing because of my role, because of my interests and things like that. Mark Zuckerberg knows exactly what ads to put in front of me on Facebook and things like that. So, but I have to imagine that this is the same thing a lot of companies are going through, where they're just being shown the tool that automatically solves all your problems, but it's not actually addressing what your problem is. It's It's fixing your sneeze when you have a cold and not fixing your cold.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's insert name of tool, and that's, kind of how this world works is, EOS and traction. That's going to be the thing. And, insert change management process here. That's going to be the thing. And it's a development process. It's, well, we're going to try these things. Then we see what we learn. Then we might add in more tools. We might reinforce these tools. We might scrap them. I mean, the folks that believe in a methodology, to me, is I know they mean well and they've seen great transformation, but that's the rarity versus no, we need to try some things. We need to figure out what's best practice, that's right practice for us. What are our leverage points?
And if you chase a tool, you can't improve the process. So and we see this in groups in our company. So if they try something and it's like, awesome, you're trying something and it doesn't work, they don't have a place to improve on and change. They have to actually drop, pivot 180 degrees and go a different direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where what we've said in this one, it's dirtier, it's sloppier, it's long, it's taking longer, but we're not pivoting off of our values. We're just finding, we're making small adjustments to get to where we want to be. We're not making these drastic changes where yes, it's great that we can change on a dime, but the fatigue that comes with that after a while, when you don't know what it is that you need, is awful. And I don't know if you know this, I'm sure there's an effigy of me somewhere in my IT department that people were burning at some point because I wouldn't let them buy a tool to do this Agile process. I said, they're like, we need a tool. I said, congratulations, here's your Post-it notes and a whiteboard. Have fun. They're like, no, we need a tool. I'm like, no, congratulations, here's your Post-it notes and a whiteboard. That's your tool. You don't get another tool. And actually, one of my managers bought a tool behind my back and put it in for his team. And we had a very rough conversation about that. And that tool was immediately taken down. And at that point, I had a ton of people pissed off at me because they want that tool to make it right. And it's like, well, that tool doesn't actually solve your problem. Just like that sticky note and that whiteboard doesn't solve your problem.
Unless you do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. But then once you get that work done and there's a process up there, then you can buy a tool that matches your process. That gives you the flexibility. Their ultimate flexibility is a sticky note, painter's tape, and a whiteboard. Yeah. Anything that doesn't work, just rip the tape off and go. Yep. You can't do that with software.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And that's the myth around innovation is that, Steve Jobs made the iPod and boom, 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 major innovation. Most innovation is like 90% of that slow, incremental, make it better, make it better, make it better, make it better.
Well, that's what I told you. Most people think that the outcome of innovation is a eureka, but really the outcome of innovation usually is, that was kind of weird.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Mike, so much for this conversation, for sharing the inner workings of your team and what has held you back and what is now making you successful. I'm so grateful that you were willing to come on and have this conversation today.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome.